Good morning, everyone.
Morning. Boker Tov.
Boker Or to all. We're waiting. People are coming on rapidly. We'll give it another minute or so, and then we'll start.
Hi, Terry.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Your
all.
better half, Chuck. You could put her right in the middle.
Well, actually, she is going to be on in a minute. A little something.
Okay.
Good morning, all.
Good morning.
It's good to see you all. We have a wonderful number of participants today. Good day to be inside, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here we go with lunch and learn. Learn is up to us. Lunch is up to you. Just want to go ahead for next week. We'll do another lunch and learn next week at the same hour, 11 o'clock. And our guest is Mayor Shelley Brindle, Mayor of Westfield. She'll talk a bit about, I'm sure, about the virus situation locally, but our main subject is going to be the visions that she and other leaders in the Westfield and surrounding communities have for the future when we all get out and start looking at what Greater Westfield can be and become. So that's next week. I want to thank Jackie Groscott, again, our Manager of Communications, who's handling the Q&A. And when you have questions, feel free to offer them in the chat box. And when we finish the first part of our discussion, we'll turn to your comments and questions. So this morning, Rabbi Miller and Rabbi Prosnit have joined us for discussion. And I'd like to begin by just offering, I'd like to offer, excuse me, my phone just rang, I have to get rid of that. Offered to each of them an opportunity just to reflect for a couple of moments about where we are in our lives and in our community. Rabbi Miller, would you like to begin?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you for putting this together, Rabbi Kroloff, and for enabling all of us to be able to share. You know, in some ways, we Jews are very fortunate. We have language to be able to use that in some ways other groups don't have, to be able to discuss and define and even consider what it is that we are going through. And by that I mean, just as an example, we have in our tradition the richness of our experience in Egypt. And Egypt is not only part of our people's story, it's also a metaphor for when our lives become narrow and confined, because that's the definition of Egypt, that Egypt is a narrowing and a shortening and a shrinking of everything that human life is intended to be. And so we get to talk about this experience as if it is living in Egypt. And of course, we have in our tradition the richness of our ancestors, and especially the rabbis and through all the rabbinic literature, and even more contemporary authors, Jewish authors who write richly about the Egyptian experience, and you know, and reference it in terms of the modern stories that they share with us. So not only at our Seder tables, but also in general, we are able to think of this period of time as living in the richness of the Egyptian experience and to be able to reference it. You should all know we're also experiencing something that we've never had before. Your rabbis and your cantors are dealing with funerals in ways that we never have before. Rabbi Prosnit will talk about that a little bit further later in the conversation. But I would just add, yesterday I was scheduled to do a funeral of an old-time congregant back in New Brunswick. It turned out that she passed away from COVID-19, and earlier in the week, both her son and her daughter had visited her, and the son was exhibiting signs of his having the virus. And they didn't tell me that when they first asked me to do the funeral. I was not able to go to that funeral. I told them if they came, I couldn't come. I thought it was unconscionable to be able to run the risk, not only for me personally, but the other family members that might come, funeral directors, the cemetery workers. And I even had to call the funeral home to let them know, because turns out the deceased son was unwilling to do that. They ended up sharing my words at the funeral, and then interestingly enough, they posted them on Facebook, which I appreciated, but it was a terrible, heart-wrenching for me to not be able to be there and not be able to comfort them in the more traditional kinds of ways. So that's a sense of what we're doing. And then I would just add the following. As everybody knows, the Temple's Board of Trustees set up the COVID-19 Relief Fund. I'm very proud that the Temple's leadership acted on this quickly to accomplish three things: to be able to have funds available to be able to help families in need, to ensure that our staff, our teachers, administrative staff, professional staff would all be able to continue to be paid and stay on the payroll, and to provide for what undoubtedly will be issues related to the Temple's operating funds in the course of the coming months. We didn't put this in the letter that we sent out, but I think it's important for us to consider it this way. By acting in the way in which we did, and hopefully by a huge response from our Temple's membership, we will be in effect stockpiling masks, gowns, and respirators. Not literally, but figuratively, for all those who are going to be in need of the congregation. There was a member who had called in, said, I'm leaving the congregation for a variety of reasons. Oh, and by the way, I lost my job. And our executive director, Alice Ludwak, sent a note. And I called the gentleman. And I said to him, this is not a time to leave the congregation. You need community. We need you and you need us. We're hoping to set up programs to be able to provide for job training, resume, to help you with your resumes, even to help you if you haven't gone on a job interview in a long time, all of those kinds of things. Well, in the end, he and his family decided to stay in the congregation. We're very, very glad that they did. And we'll stick by them closely. And undoubtedly, there are going to be more families where this is the case. They can't run to the hospitals for this, and Jewish family services are not equipped to be able to do this. The Temple has to be the place that's equipped to do it. So please, if you haven't already done so, think seriously about making a commitment to the COVID-19 Relief Fund. We are looking for benefactors. In addition to general contributors, benefactors, we hope will be people who will consider making a commitment of between $5,000 and $10,000. We have a number of them already, and we're hoping that we can raise significant funds to be able to do this. Okay, thanks. I'll turn it back to you, John.
Thank you very much. Right, thank you very much, Rabbi Miller. Rabbi Prosnit?
So I don't know, I said this before, but one of my favorite movies is Groundhog's Day. With Bill Murray, and if you haven't seen it, or You should definitely watch it. We have lots of time now, but it's the same day over and over and over again. But throughout I won't ruin the movie, but throughout it, Bill Murray's character kind of masters it a little better each day. And that's what I'm feeling right now. I'm not mastering each day very well, but I'm learning from my past ways that I've parented or the ways that I'm working, and trying to do better each day. And so actually we're in a period of our Jewish calendar called Counting of the Omer. It's 49 days from Passover until Shavuot. And the interesting part of counting the Omer is that usually we count down, right? We have counting down for the amount of weight we might want to lose, or we're counting down to New Year's, or we're counting down to the days to camp. But part of counting the Omer is counting up. And so the rabbis have field days about, like, why do we count up instead of count down? Why do we say this is the first day of the Omer, this is the second day of the Omer, this is the third day of the Omer? And so I reflect on this, and I think it's a really idea of a spiritual notion. Like each day, we're counting up because it takes us a little longer to count up. It recognizes perhaps that each day has profound possibilities. That each day is a time for me to think about a blessing during that Omer. And so we've been counting up. This is our 5th week of quarantine. We're continuing to count up and up and up. But this time of counting the Omer, I think I'm thinking about it a lot differently. I don't usually do this practice. I don't usually say the blessing of counting the Omer. But this year I am, because I'm trying to find blessings in each of these days. I'm trying to make each day a little bit more special or holy, or just take a little bit of time just for self-reflection when it seems like each day blends into each other. And that's what I've been thinking about, and I'll share a little bit more other things that we have been doing at the temple, as well as me personally, but how in this period of counting the Omer, can we continue to count up, continue to pause, and recognize the profound possibilities of each and every of our days.
Thank you, Rabbi President. Just following up on that, I'll just share with you, I've been thinking a lot about a teaching from Alexis de Tocqueville, the 19th century French philosopher and visitor to America that I've shared with many of you before, who taught us that this is a large world, and in most of it we have very little control. But within that world, we can draw a circle in which we live. For some of us, the circle is quite large. For many of us, especially now, it's narrow as Mitzrayim. Egypt is narrow. But within that circle, said de Tocqueville, we are powerful and we are free. I'd like to ask you to think about the ways in which you are powerful and free. Even if you are alone at home, you have the power to reach out to others by phone, by FaceTime, however you do it. You have the power to bring light and joy to whomever you interact with. One of my great teachers is my wife, Terry, and she was out walking with me the other day in one of those beautiful afternoons last week. And when she came back, she wrote this poem, which I'd like to share with you. I hope you find it as helpful as I did. It's up on the screen. A time to grieve, a time to mourn, but think again of all that yet remains. A sky that's mostly blue, a love so strong and true, nature's green thumb, pushing through, and life itself that will not be denied. For all these things, I will abide. I hope you find some inspiration in that, as I have. And I conclude with, you can take the, you can leave, yeah, leave it on for a moment, Jackie, that's fine. And I'll conclude with those well-known words from the Serenity Prayer of Reinhold Niebuhr. God, give me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Those are some of the themes that are helping me through these days. So let's go back to our panelists, to Rabbi Miller, Rabbi Prosnit. Thank you, Jackie. You can take that off. Appreciate that. How are you both doing personally and your families? Rabbi Prosnit, especially Caleb and Zoe?
Yeah.
Ariel, you?
This is hard. It's tough. And I know there are many challenges for many people. For us, one of the greatest challenges is Ariel and I are both working, and we have 2 kids that can sit in front of a screen for a certain amount of time or can play individually for a certain amount of time. But we need to be present mostly in their lives. And so navigating a 2 working family home with 2 wonderful children that bring us a lot of joy, but also some challenges as well. So we've kind of blocked out our schedules as much as we can, saying this is who's working when, and this is when how we're navigating this. But we're healthy. I think that's the most important thing. And so we are, we feel lucky to be, and our families are healthy as well. And so while that is a challenging aspect to navigate not having school or trying to teach Caleb how to do his D today, we also know that we've been blessed by our health and our family's health and most of our friends' health as well. I guess the other thing I reflect on is the position I am in now. When I was appointed senior rabbi, I did not think that this was something that or senior rabbi-elect this is something that I would be dealing with. I was excited for the honeymoon a little bit, continuing to learn from Rabbi Miller as this interim process goes through, and having Rabbi Kroloff as wisdom and guidance as well. And then COVID-19 happened. And so I would have loved to have that honeymoon stage and to be able to celebrate and really start the transition with people face to face. But recognizing the new reality is that this transition is going to have to be done on the phone and on Zoom, and the guidance from both these rabbis and the rest of our staff is something that I'm navigating through at this time as well.
Wish you and the family well, and thank you for everything that you are doing. Everything. Rabbi Miller, you and Joni are doing well, and your family can you give us a good report?
Thank you. I would just add for all of you to know that Rabbi Prosnit's right. His honeymoon lasted about 10 hours, and then he jumped right in, and he's been leading the staff in the team on everything as we have transformed from a physical and real synagogue into a virtual synagogue, and dealing with all of the pastoral pieces as well. And I've just been so enamored by the way in which he's jumped in and is growing in this each and every day. And Ethan, I would just say to you, so that, the question, of course, is, so when do I get the honeymoon, since you didn't get it now? And the answer is, when you retire, you'll get it for a short time, and then some congregation will reach out to you before that honeymoon's over, saying, we need an interim to come in. Could you do that for us?
You're not missing any golf, though. So no golf opening, so you're okay.
That is true. In a sense, the best part of this is that John and I are having time to be able to spend together. That for all the years in our career, we did, we didn't have the richness of time. We took time whenever we could, but we didn't have time. So we are, we're going for a walk together every day, which we didn't do. We generally, we walked separately because our schedules were so very different. We ran to see our kids, and now we're not able to do that in the same way in which we did. But we're in some ways we're spending more quality time with them, whether it's over Facebook or Zoom, or when the only places that we've been willing to go out, we're not even going to the supermarket. Kids are doing that for us, but we have driven up to be with our kids and spend time. So it's Monopoly time and puzzles and sitting around the table and eating, and that's all been very special. So other than that, we're healthy and we're watching. We do our best not to watch the president's press conference every day because it's too depressing. And we're focusing on whatever we do watch. We're focusing on those things that will add meaning to our lives. And I'm working on a 1,500-piece puzzle that I've had. It's been known in the family as the puzzle. It's been sitting in the box in my office for years, and my grandchildren refer to it as the puzzle. So when I told them that I had opened the box and started working, they went, "The puzzle!" And they're very excited, and I don't think about anything else when I'm focusing on the puzzle. That's really great.
Thank you very much. Continued good health. And Carrie and I are doing well. Our family, extended family's doing well. We appreciate all of the support that we've received from so many of you, your calls, your assistance in many ways. Many are shopping for us, and we are grateful for that. So let me turn to this question for both of you. Received a number of emails from people who've asked, how do I deal with anxiety and despair? What's the Jewish response to despair? What's the Jewish antidote to despair? There's not one, there are many, but from your perspective, Rabbi President, would you like to jump in first on that?
Sure. I think it's first to acknowledge that this is anxious times, and what you're feeling and what I'm feeling is true. And I do feel a little bit of despair, but I also feel that our tradition is rich with ways that we can fight that. And I'll have two. The first is Shabbat. For me, that is the place that I am able to just stop and feel the blessings that I have, and light the candles and be with my family, and also be with many of you on Friday nights as well and Saturday mornings virtually, knowing that these are times where to be anxious, but times where we can gather together, say our ancient prayers, our liturgy that we has provided us comfort for thousands of years, and saying the same songs, right? There's comfort in those tunes that we sing. There's comfort in the words of our Siddur, and that grounds me and really says, this is what I need now. And it makes me turn off we're on screens a lot now, on my phone a lot now. Shabbat is when I try to just say, I want to be present with the people that I love, be present in the book that I'm reading, take that time and not, like Rabbi Miller says, not be tuned in to everything else that's happening. The other thing I believe is that what brings us, what's the antidote to despair is action. And I've seen that a lot And I think many of you have seen that a lot as well, right? We take many walks, and we're much friendlier to our neighbors than we ever have been, even though it's like 8 feet apart. We have had conversations with people that we would not have had conversations with. And so, and everyone, and most people are struggling with the same things. And so just sharing how they're teaching or what they're doing in their houses, that conversation brings me out of this despair a little bit. And I think that will continue after this as well, that I will have stronger relationships, and I'm sure we'll have a block party or something to celebrate the end of this now that we know each other better. The action of joining our interfaith clergy together and praying together is something that has provided me comfort. Yesterday, I don't know if you are around, whoever lives near downtown Westfield, you might have heard all the church bells ringing at 10 o'clock. There was the Clergy Association has become stronger because of this. We have more emails going back and forth. I said we would love to ring our bells at 10 o'clock, but we don't have any bells to ring. But the idea that we have come together and we hope to be teaching more together, praying more together, has brought me some comfort. And then the action of our temple members and other people provides me hope. I know that many people have called people who are struggling. They are grocery shopping or picking up medicine, and being there for people at this time. We are an action-oriented religion, and we act in times of darkness to bring light, and that's what I've seen a lot over the past 4 weeks.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for all you've done for that. Rabbi Miller?
Well, I think in some ways the 11th commandment is you may not despair. Despair has never been part of our people's vocabulary. In fact, the antidote to despair is tikva, is hope. I don't know if many people know this or not, but the guy who wrote the words to Hatikva actually spent time in America. He wasn't really a Zionist. He spent time in America. He thought he was going to save the whole world, and turns out that he was an utter failure in America. So then he ended up going to Israel. But when the concentration camps were liberated, people sang Hatikva, but the words were not the same as the words as they are now. They were slightly different. You can actually go on YouTube. There's an Al Jolson version of him singing Hatikva, and it's with the earlier words, and all of the words in Hatikva are about you may not despair. We as a people had every reason to be able to despair after the Holocaust, after the expulsion from Spain in 1492, after the destruction of the temple. Each time that the temple was destroyed, and yet our leaders said to us over and over again, "You may not despair. Pick yourselves up." We were expelled from Israel, and into Babylon, and we were told, Jeremiah the prophet said, "Build communities and start living life and return to life and living." People who survived the Holocaust did this very same thing. In fact, it's kind of crazy, but we know that when the camps were freed, a lot of the people who suddenly had that freedom, men found women and women found men, and they engaged in intercourse immediately, sexual intercourse. When they were asked why, they said, "Because we got to make babies. Okay? We have to repopulate. We have to." It wasn't that they had spent time getting to know each other in romantic love. That was just irrelevant. Okay, what was relevant was you may not despair, and I think that's why I say I think it's the 11th commandment, that you may not despair. You have to live with hope.
as our teacher, Dr. Sheldon Blank of Hebrew Union College taught, um, and I shared it on the webinar a couple of weeks ago. He taught, despair is a sin and hope is a duty.
Wow.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
summed up
Yeah.
the Miller philosophy, or the Miller philosophy summed up his.
Absolutely.
I'd like to put in another vote for Shabbat, for all the reasons Rabbi Prosnit spoke of. It's the culmination of the week, and Erev Shabbat services and Simchat Shabbat morning have never been so meaningful. I mean, they've always been meaningful, but never been as important as they are now. And the other antidote for me is community. I've talked and written a lot about community, but when you don't have it physically, it becomes so important virtually. And the ability to maintain some semblance of our community, and in some ways the community's gotten stronger through the online experiences. I'm just today, I'm looking at, we have 87 computers. We have 87 computers. We wouldn't have enough tuna fish for all of you. 87 computers is 120, 130 people. Simchat Shabbat's getting 40 plus people, and on and on. And it's not just that we don't have anywhere else to go, because you could watch something, you could do something else. We're here because we need each other. And we're going to emerge from this much stronger, which is kind of a good segue to the next question I want to ask is, what is the most significant lesson we may already have learned from the COVID crisis? What's the big lesson, or the big lessons that we've learned? Rabbi Miller, you want to start on that?
Yeah. Well, I think the most significant lesson is how much we need one another. How very important that phone call is. One of the things that I've been doing, I'm no hero here, but I've just been reaching out to people that I haven't been in touch with in a long time, and just saying, I was thinking about you, and how grateful they are, and actually how grateful I am that I'm reconnecting. So I think that's a significant piece of it. How much we need one another is very powerful. By the way, at Rabbi Prosnit's urging, he's asked all of us on the staff to make calls to those who are in the healthcare professions, and I've made a few of those calls, and the doctors that I spoke to told me they were just overwhelmed that I was thinking of them, and so if you have a relationship with your doctor, or with a nurse, or with somebody, a radiology technician, anyone in the healthcare profession, just call them and say, I'm thinking, how are you? I know this is a very hard time for you.
Absolutely, very fine. Rabbi Prosnit?
I think a lesson that we've learned, or it's not surprising to me, is that we're overprogrammed. Especially, I think people my age who have kids, and we're always running from place to place. And I think that we'll be excited to have those programs come back, the sports, or the lessons, and the activities, or birthday parties. But I also think that, for me, I am going to think critically about the things I say yes to and the things that I engage with, and how do I make sure that when I'm going forward, I'm engaging in the things that really provide me with joy or with meaning or with community. I think sometimes we do things because everyone else is doing them. And so yes, of course we have to do this. But for me, it's really thinking about how do we maybe declutter all of our schedules to make sure that we are fully invested in the things that we want to be involved in. That's one thing that I am taking from this time.
Nice, very nice. I will never again relate to or view or relate to a healthcare worker, a grocery store shelver, a bus driver. You all can add on and on. I'm just so struck by their courage, by their willingness to step forward. First responders, of course, right up near the top of at the top of the list. First responders, they're just out there to serve others without concern, and at all levels of our society. Which brings me to something else that I've been thinking about a lot. You've seen it; it's written a lot. This virus demonstrates once again the sin of vast income inequality that exists in our country. The United States and Israel share the highly questionable status of having the two widest income gaps of any of the developed nations of the world. And the impact on is enormous. Impact of the virus on people of color is tremendous, and that's on my mind a lot. But the courage of my fellow Americans, my fellow human beings, is just quite overwhelming. Moving forward, I'm going to move on to a question addressed first to Rabbi Prosnit. Many of us are aware of what Temple Emanu-El has been doing to assist our fellow members, congregants, and others. Remind us briefly, if you would, of what is being done and what you think, what more might be done as a community going forward, both during this time and as the restrictions ease.
Yeah. So I'm really proud to say that what we would be doing as a synagogue on a daily basis is what we're continuing to do right now as well. And I think even more too. So I'm proud to say our preschool is up and running. Our teachers have almost daily Zoom calls with their infants all the way up to pre-K. There are, Rubo leads a weekly sing-along. We have Shabbat every Friday morning with our entire preschool families. So the preschool is running beautifully as it can. That's with religious school as well. We have our Sunday school, our religious school program that's run with tefillah and individual meetings with each of our classes. We had our Passover model Seder. We had a chocolate Seder for our youth group. Our learning lab, our one-on-one Hebrew tutoring is going strong, as well as our B'nai Mitzvah prep is going strong as well. Rabbi Miller and I still meet with our students to prepare for the Divrei Torah. Kana Rubel and Kana Novik are meeting to learn Torah and Haftarah and our prayers. So everything that we would be doing in person is now either face-to-face on FaceTime or over the phone or through Zoom. And so that's also with congregational learning. Rabbi Zamor will be teaching next week about the ethics of hoarding hoarding toilet paper, or like the Jewish beliefs on hoarding toilet paper during this time. We have a meeting with Congressman Malinowski on Friday. We'll be talking more about this and the response by Congress and his own take on COVID-19, as well as committee meetings from social action to the budget, to all of these things are running like we would normally do, as well as Shabbat services. I think one of the, and so I'm really proud of that. And I think that we also want to try to continue to be as much of a caring community as possible. And that's something that we've been working on, and I think we're doing better at it. We hope that almost everyone from our synagogue got a phone call to just check in to see if they needed anything. We had people delivering matzah to people's doors if you needed it, and picking, as like I said before, grocery shopping and medicine as well. And so we want to make sure that each individual is, or all the congregants that are in need or who have a question, know that we are here for them. Going forward, that's what we're thinking about, right? We don't know when this will end. We don't know when we can gather again, or how we'll have to ease back in to our gatherings. We're already starting to think about the high holy days. We're thinking about the summer and our camp. We don't have the answers, and I sometimes wish there was a guidebook for this, and sometimes that would be very helpful. So we're kind of creating a guidebook as we go along, and sometimes we misstep, but usually we're on the right path, and thinking about critically of what we as a synagogue can do in the future. And that's been really essential to who we are as Temple Emanu-El. And we want to continue with the programs that we're doing, but also create new opportunities. And so, like Rabbi Miller said, we know that many people will be out of work or will be searching for new jobs. And so we want to be a resource for networking, as well as resume building, as career counseling. We also look like that in partnership perhaps with other organizations that might be doing the same thing. We want to make sure that people who are struggling perhaps with anxiety have a place at the temple to provide some moments of mindfulness. We're exploring ways that we can offer that to our congregation, as well as how do we celebrate other big moments in our lives. And that a little bit about the transition of the synagogue as well. We're hoping to create fireside chats with cohorts that can really talk about the future of Temple Emanu-El. Share with me your ideas. I'll share with you my ideas of the vision of the congregation, and that will be unrolling out in May and June as well.
Thank you, and I'm sure you would welcome emails or even comments in the chat room right now about ideas for now and going forward.
Yeah, and also if people want to get involved, I think that's another thing. If someone has an expertise, we already saw that someone has an expertise in resume building. But if you are a person that's really good at LinkedIn and can help our congregation, or can do mock interviews, or has a store that's offering this, or as a yoga teacher or something like that, please let us know. We would love to have you part of this as we move forward.
Thank you. Rabbi Miller?
Just out of curiosity, Rabbi President, how many boxes of matzah were delivered?
Yeah, over 100 boxes of matzah were delivered. And so Passover Seder, just going back to Passover a little bit on that, I think we had over 85 computers live with us for our Passover Seder, and I know many people used the Seder that Ken Novik and I led for their second night. And it wasn't anyone's first choice, I would say, but I think that many people who joined with us really found it to be a powerful experience. I got an email from someone saying that they couldn't be with their families. They both live in Westfield, but they couldn't be with their daughter and grandchildren, but their children he got to see them do the 4 questions for the entire congregation. And how meaningful was that for him to be only a couple blocks away from his family, but to hear his grandchildren sing or to say the 4 questions for the rest of the Temple Emanu-El community. And I think that is something really powerful.
Very nice. Okay. Rabbi Miller, any other comment on that?
Just to add that, there have been, somebody delivered those boxes of matzahs. So there have been already quite a number of unsung heroes. If you ask them, they would say they weren't heroes at all. They felt privileged to be able to do this. I know we have had people who called in and said, I'm thinking of one couple. They said our children forbid us to go out of the house. We're in our 90s, and they've just forbidden us to leave the house. We really could use somebody to pick up some groceries and go to the pharmacy for us. And we have we had from the beginning we set this up, and so sure enough, groceries and pharmaceutical stuff were dropped off, and that's been going on. One of those unsung heroes, by the way, and this will come as no surprise to anybody, but one of those unsung heroes is Mike Kenny. I can't tell you how many times, somebody needed something, and we were told, "Oh, Mike dropped it off." And in addition, he and his staff have completely disinfected the entire building, so that when we do reopen the doors, the temple will be ready for all of us. And we're always grateful to Mike for everything that he does. But here, and this was actually the best. So after last Friday night service, I got a number of people, as I'm sure Rabbi Prosnett did when he led the service, thanking us. And one of them was for Mike.
Yeah, right.
Love services, and thank you so much for leading them. And we're used to seeing him standing in the back of the sanctuary and kind of hovering over all of us. But here, he's decided that he needs to be a part of it. So I think our unsung heroes have been pretty amazing.
Yeah, he thanked us for last Lunch and Learn also with Father Randazzo, which is very special. One more question before we open up to the rest, all of you who are with us today, for your comments and questions. And that is, I think a lot of us are thinking about this. How will synagogues look in the post-COVID era? What will change? What have we learned that might impact going forth? I know it's speculative, it's theoretical, but life will never be the same. And I suspect synagogues will never be the same. Thoughts on how might look? It's early, but let's spend a few moments on that. Rabbi Prosnett, since you're going to be our rabbi, we're going to start with you because, as we say, you demand.
So we'll have a lot more Purell in our synagogue for sure, right? So that's definitely So two things. I think we're going to use technology differently than we have ever used it at Temple Emanu-El. And that's something I'm excited to explore. People are unable to join us for services or Bible class or for any of our programs. I envision us live streaming all of our programming and having people that are at home, maybe because they are not feeling well, or maybe because they just got home and they wanted a glass of wine and want to go to that session but can't, so they turn on to Temple Emanu-El TV or something like that to be a part of our community from home. I think that's what we've learned. People want to be a part. Sometimes our calendars just don't allow us to be a part there at that moment. So I'm sure that we'll go live streaming for services in the future. I heard actually from someone, they found it so powerful that even though we weren't together, they heard their loved one's name on the yahrzeit list, that they were able to say Mourner's Kaddish. And so perhaps you're in Florida over the winter, but we will say that person's name and they can be a part of that service going forward. So I think the way we use technology and also the way we communicate with our temple will change. We're trying to do more videos. We're trying to have a little bit more teaching as part of our e-blast each week, and to share moments in that way. So that's a big thing. I think also, unfortunately, I think the way that we greet each other is going to be different for a long time. And the way we interact will not be the same for a long time. And how do we acknowledge that? How do we make sure that we are still healthy and safe, but also knowing that we are missing something in that fact. That we can't always just go for that hug when we're grieving or when we want to celebrate something. And so talking about that, talking about grief a little bit more when we can't be in community, I think is something we need to discuss. So it's grief of not just losing a loved one, but I know that there's a lot of high school students that are really sad that they won't be able to probably go to their prom or graduation, or college students, or many of us who have lost going on a family vacation that we've been planning. And I'm working with wedding couples that have been postponing their dates. And that there's a lot of loss and a lot of in that moment. And so I think we'll be more open to talking about those things and acknowledging disappointment, and how do we handle that going forward.
And finding new ways to be close to others. I can envision myself saying to someone, I can't shake your hand, I can't hug you yet, but I want to be close to you. And then I may say some things that I wouldn't normally say to bring us closer. Those are the opportunities that this offers. Rabbi Miller?
I think the COVID-19 crisis is speeding up what had already begun. Those institutions that were not responding to the changes taking place in Jewish life, their slow demise will now speed up, and those institutions, congregations, organizations that were getting ready. This is a shot in the arm to get them to really start to aggressively think about what they're doing. Just as an aside, the conservative movement, which at one time was the largest movement, Jewish organizational movement in America, just announced the other day that the CEO of the movement and of the Rabbinical Assembly will be one and the same persons. Okay, that was unheard of.
Unheard of.
In recent days.
I hadn't heard that, Ben. That's amazing.
Yeah, just the other day, Rabbi Jacob Blumenthal, I think is his name.
Amazing.
And so I think that on a national level and as well on a local level, institutions are going to need to look at not just their funding mechanisms, which will be important, but even more significantly, who and what they are. I know that at Temple Emanu-El, one of the things that Terry Klass, our incoming president, is looking at is creating a program for new members that will be a program to really help integrate them into the community in ways that have not been done in recent years. And currently, this is my own experience coming on board in mid-July. The only form of integration was the annual summer barbecue in the parking lot. It was lovely, okay, but it's not enough to get you to really be a part of the community. And so, under Terry's leadership, I think there will be a really well-organized and structured way to be able to welcome the new member families and get them involved. And similarly, leadership will have to be trained for this. Synagogue boards are not going to be able to function like they once did. They're going to have to learn how to be aggressive, how to be willing to take chances, and even make mistakes and laugh at those mistakes and not point fingers when people make mistakes. How to care for the membership, and also how to care for the people who work for them, and to let our Jewish values really be predominant in this. And we're all going to have to work at that. And so I think one of the great challenges, but also opportunities, will be, how do we study more Torah? Now, I know that's what rabbis are always supposed to say, but I think there's real truth to that. I'll just use this as an example. Every year during the month of Elul, I study Pirkei Avot, the sayings of the fathers. There's great wisdom, and it's not just wisdom from that was applicable almost 2,000 years ago. It's wisdom that is so very applicable to what we have right now, including the statement, don't trust anyone in your government. We need to know when we can and when we can't trust the government. When we have to say to government, politics is just unacceptable to us. And where do we get that from? We get that from Torah. We don't get that from politics. So I think we're going to need to find ever more ways to be able to engage in Torah, so that we can learn how to be proactive, not reactive, but proactive about what we want community to be. And that's going to be very significant.
Thank you for that. We have about 17, 18 minutes to go because we're going to 12:15. Jackie Gruscott, our communications manager, is on with us, and she's going to share some questions and comments that have come forward. Jackie, thank you again for all the technology that you provide for this challenging time. Jackie, what do you have for us?
Great. Always happy to help. So our first question says, given all the hatred and bullying in the world, do you think God is teaching us a lesson that we must come together to make the world a better place as the plagues did in Egypt?
Would like to jump in for that.
I'll be happy to jump into that. I think the answer is no. I think God is crying. I think God is, so to speak, is saying, I gave them all the tools. I gave them the wisdom. I gave them the tools to be able to create a Garden of Eden, and look at what my people have done with those tools. They have used them for profit. They have used them to separate themselves from one another. They have used them, those tools, to be tools of hatred and of pain, rather than tools of love and of healing. And so I think God is crying over that. I think God is crying that I sent you angels. Those angels are in the form of the healthcare workers, and you haven't provided them with all the safety things that they need, and so you are allowing some of them to be killed while they're my arms and hands on humanity. So I think God is, and then I think God is waiting for us. Remember that why did God here decide to permit the Jews to leave Egyptian slavery? Because the screaming from the Jews became so loud and so intolerable that finally God said, I can't stand this anymore. So I will do things that I've never thought I had to do before. Okay, we should be screaming as loudly as we possibly can in every way possible.
And, yeah, I agree with what Rabbi Miller just shared, but I also think there are moments of godliness that we see. And so, right, we learn about the Noah's Ark story. What is the image of the covenant between God and the people? Is the rainbow, right? And so we walk around and we take walks and we count how many rainbows we see each day as on our walks. And so, right, people are, I don't believe in a God that sends these plagues for us to figure out and come together, but I believe in a God that says, let's work together to create something stronger. And so those rainbows that bring joy or give us an activity to do each day kind of says, this is what we're doing, and this is how we are partnering with each other in that moment. So I see God on those walks in that covenant, and also in the work of the hands of the people filling the Trader Joe's racks, as well as the hands of the surgeons, the people in the hospitals that are working, the people that are making the essential workers that we think differently now of. God is in that moment, those moments as well.
Thank you both.
That's exactly what we want to hear from someone who's half my age.
Thank you both. Jackie?
Great. So this next question really goes down deep in how we're dealing with COVID-19 in our daily life. So seeing that the three of you have been talking to many of our congregants about how they're dealing with COVID-19 in their everyday life, can you give us some examples of what they're doing to cope that we could all learn from?
Very good. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Rabbi Paso.
I think that on two levels, there are many congregants that unfortunately have contracted COVID-19 and are either now are doing better or still dealing with the symptoms, who have been hospitalized and now luckily are home. And so I know on a practical level, it's been very challenging for their families. Many of them have had young kids or who have teenage kids, and they're quarantined in their bedrooms and not seeing their children. They're FaceTiming from one room to the other to check in on those individuals, bringing them food as much, but trying to be as separate as possible. This week's Torah portion, which usually is not a Torah portion that any bar mitzvah students really like to study, all about leprosy and quarantining you for a certain amount of days in a place, feels really relevant at this moment. How do we protect our families to make sure that they're okay? One of our congregants is the ECE parent who is now much better and feeling good. And he's now raising money for COVID-19 relief. And so he had his child shave his hair or give him a haircut, and he raised over $2,000 online to do something good about after his own ordeal, to thank the healthcare workers that really helped him at that moment. So I think people are really stepping up. I think also people are looking at places that they can learn more, not just about COVID-19, but also learn more about what's happening in our world and how we can better ourselves through reading more and finding ways that they can, avenues of relaxation, avenues of turning your mind off of things that are happening. I know that people are sharing books that they are reading, TV shows that they're binging. I'm excited that Fauda is coming out on Thursday, the Netflix show. If you haven't watched that, you should watch that. But ways that people are coping up differently with the disease in their lives. I'm trying to think if there are other conversations that I've had. Rabbi Miller, did you?
I think those are all good suggestions. And as I said before, I think the reaching out is probably the most important thing. And reaching out here is twofold. One is the phone calls to other people, and the other is when you recognize personally that you need to reach out to someone just to talk. That may be one of the clergy members here, or anyone on the staff that you have a relationship with. We're all here to welcome those calls and be able to share. I think one of the big things that I've tried to use here is humor. Mm-hmm. And I have some friends who often send me humor pieces and stuff, and now of course so many of them are related to what it is that we're living with, and that's enormously helpful. So the ability to laugh. So like, I can't wait to see Fauda as well. But think of some of the great comic movies that you've seen. Okay, that you loved, or that you shared with your kids when they were younger. go back and see them again, because that's why they're classics. I loved every so often, I'll watch with my grandchildren, It's a Mad, Mad, Mad World. Okay. Well, you can't watch a movie that's funnier than that, right? And of course, every time we watch it, there's a scene where Jimmy Durante plays a character where in the end he dies. And of course, what's the last thing that he does? He literally kicks a bucket. Okay, so there's even humor in death here. And every time we watch the movie with my grandchildren, I say to them, I wonder if this time he'll kick the bucket like he did before. Mm. So I think humor here is really important, and reaching out is also, those are two very good things. And then the third is make sure you're drinking a lot and keeping yourself nourishment. And if you're like me, imbibing a good glass of scotch, and if you need the blessing, because there is a blessing to be said over scotch, send me an email and I'll be happy to share it with you. I've already done that with some others who are very grateful, because now, by the way, you can use it for vodka too. But they're very grateful because now they feel that what they're doing is a Jewish act, a real mitzvah, because they're saying the blessing.
I'll add a couple of things, both from my own life and from what I've heard and seen from others. One is, can't emphasize enough the importance of physical activity. When the weather's good, getting out for good walks. If you're restricted, and some of you are not able to leave your home or your condo, your apartment, or even your room, I'm aware of that. So I know some people who are just spending, one person told me she's spending 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the afternoon walking 20 times back and forth from one end of her apartment to the other. It's not a long way, but it gives her the physical activity that she yearns for. Another is try to fix something interesting for yourself to eat. Not eat nourishing food, but also a treat once a day that you can conjure up. For me, the mangoes have been very good lately, so I just it's just a great taste in my mouth to just have some mangoes, and it turns a meal into something a little special. I'd also a couple of people have taken to writing, just writing a journal, writing thoughts or feelings about what you're going through at this particular time, and consider a few feel-good movies. Terry and I, the other day, finally got around to seeing A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, the Mr. Rogers film. Have you seen it, Rabbis?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of smiles, a lot of good feeling. We felt good about that. We're trying to see more of that and less of the downers. Again, telephone, Zoom when you can, but telephone. So, Jackie, try quickly to get to one or two. Others are a lot of good ones here.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah. What would you like to jump to at this point? Or if any of the rabbis are looking at the chat as I am, if you have one that you want us to deal with, we can address that now. Or Jackie, if you got one ready for us.
I have one that maybe we could answer very quickly, so we could we can try to pack in as many as we can now. So just to switch the conversation over to membership really quickly, we have one person that said that they're so excited to hear about all of these developments that we're making in membership, because as a new member, sometimes it's easy to kind of get lost in the crowds and lost in the bigness of our congregation. So she's really excited that we're doing this. But let's say we have some congregants that are talking to others and they're thinking about resigning. Maybe they're financially struggling with COVID-19. What can we say to them to help make sure that they're staying connected to our temple community and they don't leave us?
So first and foremost, anyone who wants to be a member of Temple Emanu-El should be able to be a member of Temple Emanu-El. The financial aspects, I know that people are struggling right now, is not a reason to give up your membership. And that's really important to say. And we can have those conversations with anyone, but if you hear one of your friends say that, or an acquaintance say that's not the reason to not be a part of Temple Emanu-El. And so we want to make sure that everyone can be a part of our community. And then I also think it's really important to say we want, I heard that you might be thinking about leaving. Have you spoken to one of the rabbis, or can I have one of the rabbis or canners call you, or one of our religious school directors call you just to have a conversation? What I've heard is it's sometimes hard for people to get engaged. And we need just to ask more, or we need to say to these people, I want you to be a part of this. And once we say, can you be a part of this thing that the Temple Emanu-El is doing? We want you to, we need you. We need you to feel this belonging, but we need you because of your skills. We need you because of your energy. We need you because of your prayers to be a part of this. And how can we partner? I think that's the way that we can start thinking about membership differently. It's not I don't want it to be a transactional thing. These are the programs we're doing, and you can be a part of it. I hope our mind shift will change to say, I'm a part of Temple Emanu-El, and they need me to be a part of it. I am bringing this. I am sharing this with my community. I need a strong Jewish community in the Westfield greater area, and I need to be a part of that. Thinking of perhaps more of a co-op model, right? I'm the owner of this Jewish community, and they need me to help own this and bring it to the next community. It's something that we'll be discussing a lot, and those are some broad ideas, but we'll start getting into the practicality as we move forward as well.
We need you, and you need us. Yes. Jackie, one last question, perhaps?
Sure. So if we have congregants that can't physically go out and do shopping, or maybe they don't have expertise on resumes or interviews, what other ways can they get involved to help out other congregants?
So, Rabbi Miller, do you want to?
Either way.
Calling is something that we're reaching out to. Shari Seltzer is one of the people that are coordinating our calls. She's a Temple member, and you can always reach out to her, Shari Seltzer.
How do they reach her?
I can type it in the Gmail account. And so she's organizing calls to congregants. So if you're interested in making some phone calls, not all of our congregants have email or have internet. So we're making a really important effort to call those individuals on a weekly basis just to check in to make sure that they do feel connected to the greater community, to the Temple community, see if they need anything. So those are people that we are calling. I'll write her email in a second. Other ways, perhaps you have an idea or a brainstorm, or I think we have ideas, but we don't have all of them. And so, right, like just all of a sudden I'm thinking of like how wonderful it would be to have a Chavruta partnership. Like we would love to have someone come and say, I want to organize a way that people can study one-on-one with each other, and I want to help organize in that sense. You can do that from your home, right? We can you can pair people up to say this is when you're going to talk to each other, and it's not just to check in, but it's to study some Jewish text, or maybe it's to read the same book, and then have a conversation about that. I think there's opportunities for us to do a lot of that in our own homes as well, and we will also open to feedback and open to ideas that you can are interested in partnering with us. I just saw something in the chat that if you have young children or kids, making cards and sending them to the elderly communities in our homes, if you want to help organize that, there are other things that we can do too. Anything else did I miss?
Miller, final word?
This kind of just jumps out at me from what Rabbi Prazen mentioned about the Chavruta thing, but we might want to, in some ways this would be pretty radical for a synagogue. I don't know another one that's done this. We might want to create a kind of buddy system. I don't just mean one buddy, but small groups, 3, 5 groups. And we used to have chavurot that were 10 to 20 families that would gather together.
We've had those, and we still have some, but
right.
Maybe now's the time.
So a buddy system that would have an educational component built in. So, for instance, a on Monday, everybody in the buddy system would be invited to study a text and have some questions. And on Friday, or Sunday, whatever, somebody would kind of give a lecture on that to everybody who's in the buddy system. That's Chavruta style learning.
Nice.
And we haven't even begun to think about it at the temple, but Rabbi Prasna, you kind of got the idea in my head, and I think it's something worth doing as a whole new educational level for the congregation.
Thank you. Our time is up. I want to thank the rabbis very much for. Somebody's ringing our phone again. Probably somebody calling to say hello.
Yeah, so I think Rabbi Kroloff, thank you for inviting us and moderating this. We hope to do many more of these as well. We have one on Friday with Congressman Malinowski, and then
Is that for the temple? Temple alone, right? So it's purely
temple one. If anyone wants to join, it will be a web.
of course. I mean, it's a temple.
The temple
Zoom, but anybody else who'd like to come on is fine. I just wanted to clarify.
Right.
That's beautiful.
And we also thank all of you for signing on and being part of this. As I said before, we don't have a guidebook for this, and we want to make sure that people feel supported by our congregation. So I'll do one last plug again for our COVID-19 fund. We want to make sure that we can provide for our synagogue, and we definitely need your help to do that. We need to help provide for those in our congregation that are in need, who will lose jobs and still want to be a part of our community. Ariel and I have donated to this fund because we think it's really important to make sure that anyone can be a part of the synagogue. And I hope that you consider doing that. We definitely need your support so we can support each other during this difficult time. So I thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Rabbi Kroloff, for having us and talking about these conversations, and hopefully we can do it again. And I look forward to sharing my vision with all of you for Temple.
We look forward to that. And I just want you to note that in the chat room are the items that we're looking for, the contact for Sherry Seltzer, the reminder that if there are any, of people.
Sherry Seltzer was on the call too, so
Yes, she is.
shout out.
Absolutely. Hi, Sherry. And for financial concerns, Alice Litwack or any of the rabbis or cantors. And next Monday at 11 o'clock, Mayor Shelley Brindle. And I want to wish you all a Moadim L'Simcha, Chagim Zmanim L'Sason, a happy day, intermediate days of Pesach, Chag Sameach as the end of Pesach approaches. Be well, be safe, be healthy, and know that there's a great deal of love going between all of us on this call. And thank you, Rabbi President, Rabbi Miller, Jackie, and
Haran.
All the best to all of you. Thank you, and have a good day.
You too.
Everybody.
Enjoy lunch.
Yes.
Tuna fish.
Tuna fish.
Matzah pizza.